for you towards the end. Okay. All right. So we're going to start with this therapeutic session, really focusing on the health and range of our bones and the connective tissue that lies on that surface. So when you're kneeling, you can use a blanket under your knees, of course. I'm on a carpeted floor, so it's a little more cozy for my knees. But I do want you to consider when you have that bolster, it's right to the center of the knees. You do not have to touch the wall with your feet. And you'll have two pose options. One, I have the blanket on top of the bolster so that when I lower down, my face is not getting smushed into the bolster. So I can turn the blanket so it's at a height that my forehead presses into the blanket. Now let the back basically spread through the back muscles, and you'll have one other option if this does not convey balance to your knees. Okay, second option would be crocodile pose. So my legs are going to be a little bit longer in the shape, and I'm going to push the bolster forward, and then I'll lie down so that my back can stretch open, and then wad up my blanket on the other side of the bolster on the floor, and then lengthen like you would in a cobra pose. You'd lift up and then start to work the ribs down, and then relax your forehead on your blanket, okay? So whichever version you're in, you can have a sandbag across the sacrum if you're in crocodile like this one. And if you're in child's pose, you can stay with that back, stretching open the knees, spread apart about ribs distance, and then relax the back of the brain. And since this is a prone position, the weight of your body feels different when you're face down than when you're on your back, which is most of the time how we start our classes. So feel the perspective, wiggle your way around until you're actually receiving the experience of the back of your body elongating and opening, and the spaces between the vertebral column relaxing. So rest the brain down. Gather your attention on the even rhythm of your breath. Feel the shape of the breath and the weight of the body facing downwards. And then a few more moments here, letting the eyes close. It's a soothing shape for the brain. It's very calming and sometimes quieting for the mind to be face down. And please take the shape that's the safest for you, for your knees. If you're comfortable in the child's pose, that's fine, but if it's starting to feel a little bit of pressure, then come forward into crocodile. Now noticing as you make your way to all fours, depending on the props, you're going to kind of move away from them for a moment into cat pose. So coming up to all fours and hands basically a little bit forward from under your shoulders, round your back, chin to chest, stretch through the spine. Of course, if you have a sandbag on your back, you'll remove it. Inhale, arch the spine. And then exhale, hollow the belly. Feel the hands press the floor away. Feel the head move in. And as you're alternating the motions, feel the fingers spread apart. And then come back into neutral, lift up the knees, And actually, let's walk our hands back to the feet so that we might need to adjust our feet a tiny bit forward from the wall so that our sitting bones can set on the wall. And with that direction of the ribs now elongating downwards and further and holding your elbows, feel when you grasp a hold of your elbows that traction that is conveyed through the muscles along the spine. And maybe noticing, let your head hang. So I know I look up and back and try to keep my vocal ability acute for you to hear. So, but here, let the weight of your head lower down. And noticing maybe the differences in the shapes of your breath. I know comparison is rather frequent in a practice from one pose to the next, but maybe just come into the shape, be present, and feeling kind of the offering of circulation, right? There's almost all the joint structures, except for maybe connections in your feet, that are open and don't have any pressure around them. You can always dangle your arms if this is too much holding your elbows. You know, get that feel of that forward and down connection. Head down. Now, as the hands move back to the bolster, you're going to start to take strides. I like to bend the knees heavily and then walk my feet back so the heels are a little bit up onto the edge of the wall. My heels are up. And if you have a little bit of a lift on your wall, you might find that is the perfect prop for your heels. And if the hands are opening out besides the bolster, let your head lower down. If you prefer a little more calf stretch, lower your heels down deeper to the ground at the edge of the wall. And then come back to a forward position. And what we'll take now is an open lunge. So you're going to step the right foot to the top right corner of your space outside of your bolster. And then as you lower the left leg down, try to slide that bolster back so it's actually holding your leg up. So the bolster is primarily a quad lift. And if it's under your knee, right, that might be a little bit ambitious, but you might like some blocks. You might carry them across, get your hands as assistance to help you, because my bolster is back, right? So I have the space in front, and my right foot is turning out. It's a little limited by the space besides it, but it's nice to work with these within the limitation, and then it guards my knee. So you want to feel like your knees have these guardrails on them in this pose. So I use that right inner thigh, then I'm standing into that right foot that's turned out. I try to empower the right heel a bit. Right, noticing this is a shape you would unlikely lift your arms up in. This is not a lunge lifter. Okay, so with that left quadricep, and then as you work your way towards a little more of a back bend, you feel the ribs forward, you feel the eyes front, looking forwards. You can always close your eyes with your head centered, depending on what's in your environment. I want you to get a pretty hefty stretch in your quads and your inner thighs. And now you're going to shift back down and you'll switch sides. So how would it be the best for your nervous system to shift? So likely you'll want to feel the ground. And then as you collaborate with that bolster, you might slide the right leg back. And I like the idea of the bolster right in front of my knees, lengthwise. And then I lean forward and I let my heels push into the wall behind me. I feel that arch in my spine. Now, if this is too much with your wrists, you simply lower down, right, your rib cage downwards and lower your head to your blanket. And then you can equalize that vibration through the feet pushing into the wall, unless you're here. Just depends on wrists and spines. Okay, now as we lower down the knees, we're gonna step the left foot. Now last time we went from a lifted leg, so this is probably a little easier. You're gonna lengthen the inner thigh, so you might adjust your bolster under that right thigh. Okay, so if you're not sure, where is this bolster touching? Right, the bolster is on the top of that thigh, and I'm actually leaning all the way into it. Right? I've got a cat wanting to come in here. Come on. There you go. Okay, so keep with the program. All right. So with that left foot turning out, do you need some blocks? Do you need to go more forward bending with your ribs? Kind of feel the casing of the ribs when you lean down and versus when you push and lift up. So I'm trying to work on that subtle quality with my breathing and my nervous system. So likely pushing up with my brain is a little too much. So I'm going to stay a little bit more centered and down. Yeah, use the wall for your foot to engage the sensation through the inner thighs. Okay, so do you feel you're stretching your quadricep here? A little bit. So with that length in the front of that right thigh and the inner thigh, I really feel that stretched adductors. Okay, so what we're going to do is come into Supta Baddha Konasana, a whole different directional plane. Okay, however, have you noticed you have your quads and your adductors, your inner thighs working? So when we shift back, what we're going to do is we're going to turn towards the wall. So I'm going to take my blanket and place it right on top of the edge of my bolster. So I have that connection back again. And make sure you got enough space on both sides. If you're right next to a wall space, you might need to shift over to the side, but you're going to turn so that your feet are to the wall and your blocks are under the legs. And you'll place a sandbag perhaps across the ribs. So let's take it so that as the spine is centering down, the knees are open. I love using the wall to stretch open my feet so I can get a feel of the toes stretching. And then as you place your cat or your sandbag across your ribs, you do look like the sandbag almost, huh? You're great cutie. Okay. So with the head back onto your blanket, set your arms open, reaching either together at the elbows or down by your sides. Take the perspective here that we're still working with those adductors, but the quadriceps are kind of rolling open and sliding down. So the block setting, we did this on Saturday, a little bit of this focus. The blocks were across under the legs, right? So they were horizontal under the legs. So it kind of places the adductor flesh and it kind of lifts it up, which doesn't appear like it looks better, but it certainly stretches it better. So you decide. Center for a few moments, relax your eyes, and recognize the movement quality of your inhale without rushing the in-breath and the out-breath. Feel how you can adjust the movement ritual of breathing into solidifying the connection to your alignment So it seems like we have the idea here right. We've got our feet close. You might feel mostly your heels touching if you're using the wall to stretch your feet a little bit. Now that 3-part breath, the belly, the ribs, and the chest. So noticing how the breath moves through that front zone, all the way up through the chest. Now move any sand off of your ribs. Observe the possibilities of where we move the shape coming up here, and you can stay with this shape for as long as you like, right, before we turn back over. But we're going to offer a twist, and this will be with the spine straight back. So the reason I'm using the bolster under the back for this twist is so that you do not turn the rib cage nor the shoulders or the chest, so you're limited in your range. You only can do what you honestly can do here. And there's no pretend on this one. So when we bring the right foot down, we bring the knee to point up. We're going to lift up the left foot, cross it to the right knee. Now, I'm going to use the block out to my right side so that when my thigh goes over, it lands, okay? And then I hold on to the left knee with my right hand. Now, if you have that ball, I guess that would be optimal, huh? However, this is often taught without the block, and it's taught where you don't hold on to your leg, you just cross the leg over and down goes the foot. But you can tell that gets the spine to curve then. It starts to lift and take you off the bolster. So I'm trying to keep it so it's very specific alignment for our circulation into our hip. So you can join me with the option with the block or a ball, and you can also do the variation that is taught often. But I'm doing this with the bolster under the back for a reason, for your spine to stay supported and elevated. So if I hold onto the knee, I can certainly stretch the left arm back besides the head, so I reach back with my left arm. Something else I noticed just playing around with prop setup is in this pose, if you wanted to jimmy this one up, you can have your chair behind you, and you can hold the legs of the chair to get these nice stretches. Even in Supta Baddha Konasana, you can have a chair behind you and hold the legs of the chair, get a really nice chest stretch. So just knowing that, I'll demonstrate that when we get to the next slide, so you can have a visual of how you could do that on your own if you like Supta Baddha Konasana as a main practice from time to time. No reason why you can't just do one pose. Better than no pose. Okay, now please let go of that knee, and then when you change sides, right, you're going to feel that left knee open, and you're going to switch it out. Actually, don't bring the knee open. Bring the left foot down, knee points up. There we go. Right foot up to the left knee. Now tilt over. Make sure you got some space, though, where you're at, so you're not doing half a pose or 3/4 of it. So the knee is shifting to the left side, and my left hand is going to hold to the knee. Hold it so that you start to adjust the feeling around your hip. Okay, so keep with that. Showing a variation with a chair. Okay. So any of these reclining poses with bolster under back, I'll go back to that first Baddha Konasana one, however you hold the legs with the blocks, but you can reach back and you can keep kind of working the chair closer to you so you can get all the way through the rungs of the chair and try to get, you have all these distances under the chair to find a hold of. So it's somewhat fun to work with, somewhat. You could even put your arms right up onto the chair, palms down, to release your wrists. So there's some therapeutic opportunities to help out achy wrists, forearms, you know, depending on what's going on with you there. And you can always push the chair farther back and hold on to the legs of the chair and work on that openness of the chest. Right, so for most of us, back aches obviously have to do with the back space being too long, right? So we want to work on opening the chest. Okay, so those of you, us, that are probably all of us, that are into this side reach with the right hip, feel that left hand still holding onto the knee unless you wandered into the pose I was showing. You can hold the chair right with your hand if you have it behind you. It's kind of fun. Fun to break into using the chairs in general. Okay, now when we take out this pose and we shift it across, what we're going to do is uncross the foot, the block, and then I want you to actually roll over to all fours. It's a lot of shifting around today, yeah? Okay, roll over to all fours. If you're using a blanket under your knees, you can add that now. And then we're going to push back to that down dog. But when we lift up our hips this time, I want you to work your way, lowering your left heel to the floor and lift the right foot up at the wall. Okay, so it's a bit of a balance here for your hamstrings, but also clearly your arm strength. Okay, so feel when the hands are pushing the floor away. And then take a step forward, right? Not leaning forward, with that right foot between the hands. And we're doing all the kind of activating patterns in the beginning today. So when we go to that lunge, we have two blocks under the hands, and we're going to pivot the back left foot so its outer foot is against the wall, and just keep it steady. Right knee is above the ankle. Okay, keep it simple here with the joint structure. And then with that right hand on the block, lift the left arm open and up, turning to your left side, turning out from the thigh, opening through the ribs, and try to stack that the right knee above the ankle, but keep that rotation, yes, through the rib cage. Stay with that right leg bending. There you go, keep it bending. So you're going to really bend through that right knee and turn to the left with your left arm up. Good. Excellent. So feeling where the ribs turn and where the hip joint has that heat. Breathing. Okay, now stabilize, stretch the left hand over the left side of the face. Good. And then lower that hand down. Step the left foot to the right foot and switch sides. Right foot steps back, okay? You're gonna pivot the outer side of that right foot to the wall and maintain the carriage here of the left knee above the ankle, and then the right arm opens and turns, lifting. Yeah, feel where the quality of circulation is really in the hip socket, right? You're going to feel the pockets of circulation kind of swarming into your hip. So steady, strength, balance inside. Inhale. Exhale, lower down through that right hand. And let's take a moment here to lift up the back heel so you have that heel set up to the wall. And we're going to step the right foot to the left and step for a moment with your feet hips distance apart and let the spine reach forwards. Okay? I want you to actually take it so that you're reaching your arms front. Reach, reach, reach. Come up to standing and press down into your heels. And then open your arms out wide and lower the hands down. Okay, so we're going to take our blocks off to the side of the mat and then add our chair on top. So my chair is several feet away from the wall. How you're going to guess this chair distancing act here today is you're going to turn to face the wall with your chair behind you, the seat facing to you, and you're going to work your way so that you could easily put your hands on the wall and then lift up your right foot on the chair. So I want to still feel like a little bit of challenge here with my balance. So I'm going to put the chair a little bit farther back. I do want to give you a little heads up. We're going to do some seated poses soon, and reaching to the wall would be nice, but you can always put your chair closer. It's not that difficult to move it back and forth, but once we're standing, we probably don't want to futz with our chair too much. So we're stretching back through that hip flexor on the right side. So when the foot is back to the chair, top of the foot, feel where the knee is in its kind of gliding shape, straight down from the femur down through into the attachment of the leg into the knee joint itself. Okay, now when I have the hands onto the wall, I'm going to stretch open the hands a little farther to the edge of the width of my shoulders. And then feel the left leg warming up. Right? It's all for that left hip joint. Okay, now get a feel here for your right leg stretching back. Can you bring your hands up as far up as they'll go at the wall? Okay, realistically, your neck is going to move so that you lift up to keep that arch through the spine quite nice. Good. Okay, now keep that awareness through that left thigh. How can you not? And you're going to switch the leg on the chair, which will be so joyous because that left leg is tired out. So then you can kind of flush it into this next position. Left foot back on the chair, switch sides, and then feel where the top of the left foot is touching. Are you pushing into it, or are you merely letting it just be? So I would play with the length of the left leg moving back versus trying to push the foot down deep into the chair. Feel where your reach is with your thigh tissue. Okay, and you understand this sometimes by the alternate relationship of the other side, the hamstring. We easily will fold our bodies forward, like we have an awareness of that with the weight of our upper body drawing down and stretching our back. But here it's a little different, right? We have to move our upper body back to stretch our front, which is kind of alien to our existence, walking on 2 feet, and it's just different. I'm sure my cat would understand. It's different if you're on all fours. So feel where that leg extends behind you, balancing those parts. Now, if your hands are far up, keep them up. Feel where the pelvic floor is connected deep into your right foot. You might look down at your foot and see if it's basically parallel. It's hard to feel or look at the inner workings of the pelvis, right? To stare at it wouldn't do it that much support. So we want to get a feel of traction in the hips here. So what we're going to do is lower the hands, slide the foot off of the chair. Do any wagging of your hips you need before you sit down. And we're going to take a seat on the chair so that you could touch the wall with your feet, the bottom, touch the base of the wall. So I'm going to move my chair close enough, give myself a little space on the left side so I don't push into that wall. Everyone's space is a little different, but I want you to have your feet flexed, have a little bend through the knees, and then reach back on the chair. Hopefully you have a folding chair that's reachable to the back sides of it. I'm going to push my chair a little farther back so I get more emphasis with my arms, okay? All right, now you've probably thought of this one where you could stretch your thigh back and do these quad things, but we're going to keep it pretty basic, easy going here. So when I hold the chair, I'm actually going to lean forwards and keep the sitting bones. I'm on the verge of the edge of the chair here. I'm not completely sitting in the center of it. I'm on the edge. Okay, keep the chest open. Now you're going to walk your feet in to about hips distance so the bottoms feel connected, and get a block, place it to that distance, which is likely the mid setting on the block. All right, so I'm going to set my block between the knees. Okay, and I'm going to place my hands onto the center of the thighs, and not a magic trick occurring. Okay. But find where there's a kind of a coexistence of the legs touching the block and the spine centering up. Okay, right hand reaches back to the chair, left hand to the outside of the right leg, and then you're going to rotate through the axis of the spine and clearly through the right side of your chest. Okay, and so if the back bar of the chair is feeling too jarring for your shoulder, you can also hold the seat of the chair. You might have to scoot your seat itself a little farther back, your tush, but you might get a feel of, well, that one might be better for you. So right now, that just feels better with my hand on the seat of the chair. I have a little bit more of a complete challenge here for my ribs. My intercostals are trying to rotate, strengthen my stomach muscles. Not to say holding the back is wrong. It might feel a little cleaner to hold the seat of the chair for your shoulders, so you don't feel like you're kind of budging against the joint. So every arm length is different. Some of them are. Now with my feet forward, I'm going to try to slide them a little front so I have an approach of awareness distant from my feet to my sitting bones, to my ribs, to my shoulder. Pause here with your inhale. Exhale, feel the body turn. It's such a clean twist, right? It's extremely safe and effective here for the connection of the block between the knees to keep the sacroiliac stable. You know, when you come back around forward to the front, taking away the twist, roll your shoulders back. Take some deliberate shoulder shrugs and rolls. Feel the shoulders centering back. And then turn left. So the right hand to the outside of the left leg, the left hand to the seat. Is it different on your second side with all these rules that we've set up? We have the block, so that kind of makes it a rule that we're not twisting the knees. So I find it is different from one side to the next for maybe multiple areas of the body. So use these restrictions and then use them as a guideline. So if you are not twisting as deep and holding the bar of the chair feels better on this side, notice what internally, you know, that subtle energy where it calls you to move to. And if you can get a feel of your hand on the back bar or the seat, and then turn the chest left and try to keep that left shoulder rotating. There you go, Mimi, that's nice. Feel that turning. And then it just stays, right? It's not going to all of a sudden twist further and animate itself. It is what it is, right? It has the perfect, peaceful coexistence now with your back muscles. Breathing. Exhaling completely. Now, as you come back to the front, we're going to take the block aside and step that right foot up to the left knee. So you're taking that crossover, right? Right foot over to the left knee, just like so. And then you're going to lean forward. You're in the chair facing the wall, but you're going to lean forward and feel where the supply of circulation kind of pools in the underbelly of the legs. And if you touch the wall and that feels actually helpful for you, gives you some destination, you can stay with that. When you're leaning forward, let the body move downwards. Okay, encourage this back space to fundamentally lengthen and feel where your head space, hopefully it's here in the practice, but feel where that space is supported. Be nice if you can have your brain in a supported environment. Now the right knee may try to pump itself up. So I'm trying to work with that inner leg circulation. Most of it's about time in the pose, not shaking the leg around or wobbling into it or pushing and prying the joint. So we're giving some stability. Now with your back rounding like you do in cat pose, chin towards the chest. Inhale, arching the spine, push a little bit more into the wall. And really try to give your weight into your bones. And then when you switch the leg, you might work with your own creativity here. Maybe you go a little bit forward and back and roll your shoulders, twist and shout, however you want to go. You're muted, you could do that. But when you lean into the left leg, yeah, feel the difference. It's likely something. Some difference is most welcome here. So when I lean into it, feel and then be aware of what your thoughts are about it. And the hands could go to the wall, the hands could be on the legs, they could be onto the chair, reaching, centering, and maybe lower your head downwards. So give a feel if your left foot is doing the same thing your right foot is doing, which is flat, right? It's not curling, it's flexing, it's moving through the actual joint, right? That tabulates movement of the foot. So it's kind of complex if you associate that as being the same as your right foot, because it has all the weight bearing into it with the right foot, not the left. So when you lean into the shape, you might walk your hands up. It's so individual, depending on what is supportive for you. Yeah, do any adjustment with your hand height at the wall or your hands touching onto the tops of the thighs and leaning, which feels best for you right now. It's a fairly concentrated shape in the joint. Okay, now interesting, we're going to come up, we're going to step out of this shape. We're going to come up to the standing shape. So I would encourage you to use your wall and walk your hands up as far as they'll go before you present your weight into your feet. Feel when you load your feet, maybe a wider stance is better. A good traditional way to get out of the chair is generally when you step a foot to the side, right, and then you lift up for your pelvis. It's a good thing to start studying how you get out of a chair. That's a Feldenkrais awareness through movement methods for the spine carriage. But sometimes if you put both feet forward, it's a little tough on the knees too. So when I come up, I'm going to turn facing you, but I want you to turn so that Your chair is a little bit distant, but your left foot is against the wall. This will be important. Left foot against the wall. Feet are in a wide angle. So my feet are still parallel to the sides of my mat and the wall. And then as I lean forward, I'm going to set my weight so my seat, for me, could touch my wall space, but for you, you might be in the middle of the room a little bit with that. So you're going to take your blocks under your hands. So they're right under the shoulder line. You're going to tip your weight forward so it's balanced on your feet. Right, so there's no longer weight just in my heels. It's spread through the foot. And sometimes you wish your hands would respond like your feet respond to this type of flexion, but the wrists don't always do the same in a reaction. So feel how this will work for you. You're going to either be here and basically emphasize that core support, spine long, head centered, crown forward. Or you're going to stretch your blocks a little farther down on the floor for a wide angle. Hands are flat on flat blocks. Lean back so your hips stretch back, head between your arms. And then some of us might feel more comfortable with the hands walking closer to our feet, between the toes, between the feet. Hands are a little bit wider than shoulders, and lower the head towards the floor. Of course, this is all different for each of us. Everyone in this group has a different range of motion, a different interest in the session. So, you know, I do kind of like this one that is my least favorite, is to go to the one that I'm not so sure I'm welcoming in. I'm banking on the core work. So feeling this stretch of the legs, pretty basic, the spine, and neutral spine, head centered. Okay. There is a gift to putting your head below your heart though, right? So if you do take a few moments at some point, I would bring your hands so that they can be between your feet, either on your blocks or on the floor, and then let your head lower down. Also, you can hold your legs, okay? With your hands, you can hold on, slightly bend the knees, monitor the shoulders, let your head nod side to side, give it a few more moments. One of those three versions, you've got several options here to be in your forward bend. Let the back waistline spread and lengthen. The back spreads open through the shoulders. Keep micro bending your knees, right? Make sure that they're not hyperextended. Great. Weight of the head, nod side to side. Carefree pose. Now, when you bring the hands either on blocks or floor, you're going to start to turn towards your right foot. So I know the face has been flushed. The skin cells of the face are flushed a bit when you turn. So just be slow and consistent with direction. You're going to turn your right foot to the chair and then pivot. So the back heel is facing right to the wall. The back foot is parallel now. So instead of that back foot turning out, you're going to pivot that foot, and then you have your hands on the chair seat. So whether you're using a stool or a chair that has a back or no back, right, they're going to be helpful for this position. So with that back calf stretching, try to reach forward through the rib cage. Okay, I'm going to give one more option on this. If you like to stretch your calf deeply, take a block at the foot of your chair on the right side and tip up the block, right? And then place your foot, right foot, toes up on that block to stretch that calf. All right, that's an option. So you're either there or your foot is under the chair parallel and you're working with the rib cage. Block is an option on the foot of the chair. You're not stepping on the block under your foot right now. It's tilted up on the foot if you're using it. So maintain this focus for a few more. Your elbows could also go down on the chair. kind of nice to take away pressure in the wrist and focus on the, the parts of the body that are fairly viscous, right? The tissues, right? So the thicker spaces versus like the leaner space, like the wrist. Now, if your foot is on the block, slide it under to join the rest of us with our foot on the floor. Okay. And then with the hands on the chair, you're going to turn to your right. Right arm lifts up to the ceiling. Feel that circulation through your right hip. Revolved triangle pose. Okay. Make sure that that chair is under you enough so that you feel supported with the alignment. Does that make sense? So I probably wouldn't do any wrong if I bring my chair in closer right now. So I feel like it's right under my shoulder. And then when I pivot, it's kind of easy. And I have some help from the chair. And now right hand is down. Take a moment here in between. We're still going to keep the right foot under the chair though. And then turn the left foot open for triangle. So the right buttock tends to kind of swing back on this. So what you're trying to do is to micro bend the right knee. And you'll feel this right inner thigh is basically tucking under. So you're going to let your tailbone, and sense as it draws in, and that right sitting bone is drawing under, so that when you lift your left arm up, you're a little bit more stable. But I think this whole pelvic spacing on this one can be a little bit challenging. So the most basic alignment you can afford yourself is likely the highest quality for this one. So feel that branch of the left arm moving up, and then actually stack yourself up. You're going to come up so that both hands are up towards the ceiling, about shoulder width apart. Nice. And get that feel of the weight into your feet, even if you can close your eyes. I know that if you're feeling a little bit off balance, that's not the brightest idea, but feel where that inner line is from the right heel up through the groins, through the pelvic floor, and then down through the left side. Okay, now left hand at the wall, so the elbow bends, and the right arm open. Okay, and then take yourself into the shape one more time. You're going to lean down to that right side. This time, when you lower your right hand down, turn so that the left arm, as it reaches up, turning through the waist. Okay, we'll take a little breather here between sides. So as you lower down that left arm, you're going to stretch it over the side of the face. Yep. And then lower your hand down to the chair. And when you switch through, take an upward facing dog. So the back heel lifts up. The hands are holding the edges of my chair. The chair is right under my chest, very close underneath. Right foot back and lean forward. And if it's too much on your wrist, and your knees can take it, it's either wrists or knees, isn't it? You can lower down the knees and stretch your front this way. More of a camel pose versus up dog. It's pretty advanced though in the core. So if you're comfortable with your knees off of the floor, it's a little bit of a heart workout. You can feel it in the chest and the heart, low back, waist. Okay, come back to chair dog. Feet hips distance, sitting bones move towards the wall. And just let the head lower between the arms. Feel the greatness in your back. Believe it's a great back too. It's the greatest back pose. Maybe not the greatest back pose, but summarize this one. So the sitting bones, when they push to the wall, is helpful. And I find it interesting for my hip flexors, actually. So I have my chair under my hands, and I am putting a little energy into the arms to reach. Now, chairs are so great for keeping the chest open. They're remarkable compared to if you were on the floor with your hands in dog pose. Here, your hands have to stay and this perfect balance with the joints and the muscles. So approach this by bending your knees a little bit more, and the head might lower down just because of gravity. And then when you are starting to switch sides, you're going to approach coming up, right heel back to the wall. Left foot is either at the left foot of the chair, right, with the block. You can situate that, or you could just put your foot on the chair to stretch your calf on the lower bar of the chair. That's not too bad on the leg. The block guide, though, although for me makes a difference compared to putting my foot up on it. Quite a bit of calf difference. So you be the decider here, okay? So you can decide. Do you want to use that moment for the calf to stretch? It might be really nice to have that opportunity, especially if it feels like you can do that with your elbows down or your hands down and flush out into the calf. I know they kind of mystery parts on the calf because you never know what needs that stretch till you identify with it and isolate it. It's at the bottom of us, right? So it has quite a bit of residue just that's kind of lurking at the base of your walking structure. So it makes sense to get upside down, put your legs up the wall or up in the air. It's good stuff. Okay, now if those have the foot flexing, want to change, you can change or keep it, right? So I'm going to put my foot parallel under the chair. My back right foot is parallel as well. Looking to your feet in the next few moments, let's all arrive with our left foot under the chair. Look that both legs are they're in opposite tracks. So there's 2 tracks for the legs. Parallel left foot, parallel right foot. Okay, and then when you walk the hands up onto the chair seat, you're going to turn left and work your way of motion so that there is circulation. It's challenging here on this to feel, oh yeah, it's circulation, or maybe no, it's how long do I have to be here thought. So you might work with head turning down to look to your chair. Be a little cautious of both the knee and the elbow hyperextended. They're both going to try for it. Right, the left leg will try to jump back. The right elbow will try to press in. So a little micro bend. You could do this right arm on the chair or on a block. You could always heighten it, put a height underneath your elbow so you're not on your wrist. Okay. So feel that turn. So if it's painful, it's not good alignment. So keep in mind you might need to modify. Feel the turn. Feel that left arm. How about to our back? We didn't try that last time, but it certainly keeps the waist turning without stressing the shoulder joint. Breathe. It only helps. Okay, now turn back to center. And then left hand is down, and when we pivot, we're going to turn that right foot open. And then I'm going to get that chair so it is even more obnoxiously underneath me. So when I pivot, now I'll give you a little heads up. We are going to work our way to half moon pretty soon. Half moon pretty soon. So when you feel your legs under you, they're stretching out. Right? So this pose, the legs are out from the center of gravity. They're not under your pelvis, right? So that's different, right? Half moon, it's under your pelvis. So there are some things to kind of witness in your progression. So feel the turn of the waist. Your right arm could be up. It could be behind you. If you're doing the practice for core work, let the arm go behind you sometimes and work with that gravitational resistance from the earth because you're resisting. Okay, now if you turn back towards the chair, we're going to take the right foot to the chair. So both our legs are to the chair. And what I want you to do is actually stand up and turn so your left side is to the wall, but you're going to turn so your left arm can touch the wall. So that's your distance. That's the distancing for half moon, ideally. So my chair is not perfect spot right now. I'm going to kick my block out so I don't trip on it. There's two ways you can do half moon. I would recommend you try both ways. If you like to do the most basic way, you're not going to move your chair around. You're just going to leave it here and push it out when you come to half moon. So I'm going to turn the right foot towards the underside of the chair. So this foot is turning out. And then I will take my chair, because I like this version, flip it so the seat is on the other direction. Hopefully you didn't put an army of blankets on your chair like I do. And then you're going to step out with that right foot. Now, when you come away from the wall, this left hand's got to leave. That was a measuring marker for your leg distance. Okay. So when I step away, I'm going to lean into the chair and I'm going to let my knee touch the chair seat. I'm just too far away, a little bit too far. I'm going to pull that chair in. And my focus right now is to get this chair so it supports me. So I can put my elbow on the chair and my left arm up. That makes some sense? If this chair is too much in your ribs, you don't like it, you can put a towel on it or a blanket on the back bar of the chair. But it really kind of holds this pelvis. You'll see when I turn the other direction how it holds the pelvis to be centered and supported. It takes a little bit of shifting around and giving it a try. It's not the easiest thing in the beginning. And you don't have to have your elbow on the chair. There's some that will, reach down to the floor, that type of thing. But I'm basic. Okay, left arm is up. You can do this with the chair the other direction as well. Okay, now feel how your left foot pushes into the wall. Likely your balance is supported with the chair. And contemplate this for a few moments without this left arm up, whether the arm is behind you or down towards your chair. So you can keep this leg pose and this core pose, but not the arm resistance. It's funny how just lifting your arm up is a lot of resistance work for your shoulder. So feel where your seat is. Feel if you can move your tailbone in at all, and how would that be arranged anyway? So my right thigh is very sturdy. I have a micro bend in the knee. Now I'm using this pose for massive core work. So when I switch sides, what I'm going to do is lower down my left leg and step it to the chair and then stand with my back lengthening. This is where it's really nice to have a blanket on the back bar of the chair, and then you're stretching forward, right? So you might be able to do a forward bend here with that chair bar kind of into your belly space. The belly is mushier than the ribs, so you probably have to go a little lower. Yeah, this is often taught where you have blocks on the other side of the chair on the floor and you're actually reaching to them. That's a little extreme. Okay, so now I'm going to switch sides. My feet are in the right place. So I'm going to lift my right foot up to the wall. I know I'm pretty good with the wall spacing. I'm going to turn my foot out and then turn to my other side. So what I'm trying to get is this bar supporting me as I lift up the right arm. Okay? If you're short and this distancing is a bit challenging, you can use a blanket or a thin towel if the blanket's too bulky. Right, so you can add some support, which is kind of cozy actually in general, but I'm not trying to encourage that you're working always with your left arm straight. You could, but you can tell how this can hyperextend even the spine and the knee when you push up and do this type of kind of arching, swooping positions. So focus on that core piece. Feel where the foot pushes into the wall. Feel how the back space lengthens through the pelvis. Breathe. Yeah, and feel the support. Feel the breath and the spaces that it's moving through. And if your left foot's kind of starting to futz and turn inwards, toes are moving in, see if you can really press into the left foot's base. Good. Almost there. Almost done with standing work. Just about. Breathing. Okay, now if the left arm, sorry, the right arm is up, you can keep that reach through the fingers. Press into the right heel. Have it your way, right? The right hand could be back on the leg. Right arm could be behind the back. Turn to the chair. Okay, right foot turns so the toes face down at the wall. Balance it. Okay. This is like warrior 3 right now, right? We have the right foot at the wall, our ribs are centered and over the chair. So you can see how this could be a good warrior 3 prep, right? I mean, you can get the perfect warrior 3 in this pose. We're going to pass on warrior 3 because we're warriored out. But as you lower the right foot down, we're going to turn the chair. If you need to take a forward bend and take a few breaths here, this is a good time. Okay. I'm going to turn my chair other direction. Chair seat faces to the wall. And then I'm going to step through the chair. Okay, you don't have to be a perfect distance from the wall. There is no such thing right now. We're just going to do a little core work because we just stimulated the core with our standing. So you're going to put a ball or a block between the knees, narrow. You don't have to have this blanket on the edge, but mine just happens to still be there, so I'm just going to leave it. Trying to just leave things as they are and see how it goes. So I have the knees holding onto the block. Now when I have my seat on the chair, I want you to position so you feel like your buttocks can kind of relax on the chair. It's not like they're being squished forward or back. They're just kind of resting in the center. However rest goes for you. And then bring your hands back around the contour of the blanket if that's on the chair. If you have the chair surface without a lot of padding, that's okay. Hold on to the chair edge and move the shoulders back and in towards the spine. Okay. Now, feel where your sitting bones align up into your ribs, into your shoulders, and then the neck, and tilt your right ear to your right shoulder. Really important here. Feeling the hands clutch the chair. Feel your ear tip over to your shoulder. Squeeze the block, come back center. If you prefer the ball, use the ball. Tilt the left ear to the left shoulder. And be a little cautious here on the pressure you're putting into your neck. So feel that it's a free neck. Okay, now try this without holding the chair. So you're going to hold the back. You're going to basically let your hands rest on the back bar. Tilt your right ear to your shoulder. And then tilt your left ear. And does it seem easier when your hands are on the bar of the chair versus the seat? Just notice. And then you're going to lean back without the head tilting now. You're going to lean back, squeeze the block. Okay, reach the arms forward. Now, when I'm here and I'm leaning back, what I feel is I like my seat a little forward on the chair, kind of right in the middle. And then when I lean back, it feels a little bit more, I can let my tail draw in or under. So that's up to you, but you think about boat pose, you have the tail long. So come on up, inhale, just find your sitting bones, arms reach. Exhale, lean back. We're going to take one more twist set. That's not the last twist of the day, but hopefully. Come back up, turn to your right. Left arm holds the bar of the chair. Right hand holds the back seat. Feel this upper back turn. Center the sitting bones. Good. And then when you kern back forward, you kern forward, you're going to turn to your left side. Other side from kerning. Twist. Yeah, so use this as that connection, the upper back. It's a different twist than we did earlier, but we were still on this chair facing the other direction. It's a little different in the spine, the shoulders. This kind of interesting upper back turn. Okay, now when you come back through center, I want you to actually shift back, move your block to the floor, and then carefully get yourself out of that chair, at least out from that direction of the chair, and we'll take ourselves to sit. If you like a blanket under your sitting bones, you might just flop the blanket down so you have like a pretty good square surface. And you're going to carefully come down to your seat and then push the chair a little bit away. Watch out because they sometimes buckle if you have a folding chair next time they're on you. So I'm going to use my blanket for some wide padding for my whole rear space, my whole leg space. And then take the right leg under the chair seat straight through. And the left foot's going to connect up to the right inner thigh. Now I could put a sandbag on this left thigh, that would be good. Ball can go under the left knee. If you decide this knee juncture is too much for you, you don't have to have your foot to the thigh. Kind of feel what reacts. Now this will change the back support, right? This will change my back lift if my foot is out. So I'm trying to contain it. So now we're going to reach our arm onto the chair and try to get the back bar. This is one where you might use a strap, right, to get around the back bar of the chair so you can hold it with the strap. But I find I get my armpit as high up on that chair as I can and it works. But that's because my chair is really close to me, underneath me. So you get a feel when you stretch your left arm behind you, you're going to rest the knuckles of that left hand to the sacrum and then feel your head lean to your right arm. Yeah, with the differences in our arm lengths, right, that's going to change if your right arm is actually on the chair itself. And if your right foot is touching the bottom rung of the chair, that's different. So if you're fortunate to be short enough, you are going to feel the bottom rung of the chair. So feel the body lean and really produce that waist kind of resistance here. The chair holds you up, so you don't really know your maximum in this position, right? You're going to kind of an equilibrium that we've all agreed on for the shape. Okay, now as you let that right hand go low, you're going to slide up. And I want us to find the balance between the sides. So take a moment and pause and just feeling where your spine moves in and up and the sides of the waist, if they can actually still pick themselves up. Right, part of the practice is adjusting our shape. And so when you change sides, be deliberate and focused that when you switch your left foot under the chair, if you want to reach to the bar of the chair for a moment and lean forward, that's fine. Okay. This I like for my calves. I have my toes up on the rungs of the chair and I stretch my calves a bit that way. But go to the second side rather soon. So your sand goes on the right thigh. If you would like a block under your knee, add it. And then reach the left arm on the chair seat and feel where, the differences lie. I mean, I imagine one side reaches easier than the other for your arm, your shoulder. It's possibly not just an arm piece that's working, it's the flexibility of the sides of the spine on one side over the other for your hip relationship. So as we get to the final part of the session, we'll work with bridge pose and legs up, feeling balanced in our hips. So feel when you lean into the shape. For now, we're here in a seated side angle, okay? So let the weight of your ribs lean to the left and get some space in the sides of the waist. Breathe into the side waist. Right, head can lean down, or you might feel very comfortable with your head centered and supported. Flex the left foot. If it's not on the rung of the chair, if it's past, that's the way it is. Good job. So as you start to come up, we're not adding twist to this one. So we've done our twist. So what I'm going to have you do is to move your chair, take your sand off for the moment, move your feet maybe under the chair, take a forward fold for a few seconds just to clean up that circulation in the low back. Okay, now as you witness that transition, you're going to bend the knees and then you'll get some ease to take your chair and move it off of the mat, off of your practice space. And then we're going to take our blanket from under our seat away. And I want you to lower down so your feet are up at the wall. You've got a blanket under your head. We've got two more pose shapes with the wall, so it won't be too much chaos getting around with your props, but be aware all you need around you right now is a blanket that's very flat under your head. And then we're going to add a block, so it's between the knees. This is important that you have a block between the knees. In fact, if you have a second block, use it. Lift up your hips and place the block flat. Flat, flat only for this one. Even if you're a big, ambitious person on your bridges. Okay, so use as much of that flat space so that just the edge of the block is at your tail, and then you have more block surface under your sacrum. Really use all that block that you can. So the tailbone is kind of at the edge of that block. Does that make sense? So your sacrum is all supported. And then be aware of that concentration of the pelvis lifted. And bridge pose can be a core focused pose, a core strengthener. So when I'm here, I have my feet at the wall, the block is narrow between the knees, and I'm just lightly holding onto the block. Okay? Feel your arms down below the hips so they're stretching forward to the wall, palms open, and try one shoulder to roll down and in and the other shoulder to roll down and under, right? So they're going underneath, wrapping. And then I don't know about your shoulders, but mine do that and they kind of slide out at some point, but I at least have the ideal focus with my shoulders and my arms. Feel the wrist kind of unraveling. This is good for the wrist, right? Palms open, you've rolled your shoulders down and in, and that circulation in the wrist feels fairly comfortable. Okay. So feel when your feet push into the wall. And now what we're going to do is squeeze into the block, bring our elbows to press down, and then you're going to lift up your hips off of the block. And then feel how high you lift up. Notice the direction of the hips lifting, 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 breathing. Try not to roll your head side to side. Now slide the block away and lower down the spine. Go vertebral, slow down. Okay, now once you lower down all the way through the back of the pelvis, we'll take a few drawbridge poses, which means the arms go overhead with you. Lift up the arms, lift up the pelvis, feel the feet high enough on the wall that there's no knee challenge, and then lower the arms down. Now it is your choice to have a blanket under your head or not. That's clearly a choice. Go a couple more times. And I want you to try that analysis of how the hips feel when you move them up and the circulation in the legs. Because the next pose is going to be legs up the wall or legs up the chair or the couch or the bed, whatever you have to put your legs up. So I want you to notice one last drawbridge, how you have to define your leg muscles here, the definition of a leg. And then when you lower down the spine, so it's all about gravitational flow. That's kind of it, right? That's all about how you deal with gravity. So remove the block and then grab a bolster. If you're going to go legs up the wall without a bolster, that's fine. You could stack up blankets. If you have pillows, you can do that as well. Some people come into legs up the wall. This is how they were always taught, was to come into it this way, where it was to scoot up to the wall and then lift up. It's never worked for me that way, but some people, I imagine the group can do that. But I found that I have to roll up and get my tush at the wall. And then I've got my sandbag nearby. I'm going to roll and let the legs swing up the wall. And then I find my blankie under my head. Probably a little more blanket height would be good, not just a flat. But up to you. If this feels good on your neck, right? It's less flexion in the neck. That's what you want, right? You don't want the neck to be pushing down chin to chest position during the day, which is what happens anyway. So feel what's right for that slot between the base of the brain, right? The occipital lobe area here, and then down to the shoulders. Feel where the blanket could be. It could be occipital and then down if you want. Remember when we do brain float, it's right at the occiput. So that's kind of a good measurement, kind of near there, maybe a little bit above. Sand is on the soles. If you have sand, use it. If you've got a bag of rice, something that's 5 pounds, it's just fine. You don't have to have a sandbag exactly. And then as you place the sand to the feet and the soles are open, let the body, the gravitational flow through the legs take over, reversing the effects of gravity on the heart and the lungs. Now, if I'm working on that reverse of gravity on the heart, likely my elbows would be out to the sides. It could be either elbows or hands. If you're stretching them overhead, it's a little more extreme. And you could also rest your hands on your torso, or you could rest the elbows out to the sides with the hands touching the ribs. So let's close our eyes at the point that you feel supported with your props. And gather your attention on loosening up the breath through the ribs. Maybe loosening up your control, and feel how supported you are and relaxed you could be under the support. Give yourself permission to let go and surrender the breath. Check into where you feel support from right now. Feeling that interconnectedness with the group perhaps, or my focus on the practice offering to you. See if you can soak in that awareness into your home and bring that in. Right, we are still connected even though we may not be in the same room. We're in the Zoom room. Now, as we give ourselves just a little more time to dabble in this shape, I encourage you to let the feet be flexed, the toes moving back and down, so you really feel that organization of reversing the flow of gravity to the heart, to the lungs, and that stimulation of the core muscles and that core strength in the vital organs toning, turning them upside down, where the opposite of prolapse is occurring in this position. So it's a good one to be in for 5 to 10 minutes. Just doing it. Doesn't need to be a certain time of day, but find this as a part of a practice in your life. So with the kind of layers of leveling with the head down, right? The legs are above the abdomen. The heart is below that space, that reverse gravitational flow. It's a slope. You're going to bend the knees. I like to move my feet off the wall first, then bend the knees. And then you can either let the sand be tossed overhead or carefully move it. And then your feet come to the wall. You can either land them at the wall, knees out, feet together, or have your feet step on the wall a little bit. But feel the awareness in your lower back where it's most complementary from the shape. And then as you gather your legs towards you, either holding with your arms or pulling in with gravitational direction. It happens anyway. Let's roll to a side where you're cozy to go to, and let's join sitting for a few moments together. So find a position of support, bolster, blanket, sandbag. Lift up your spine out of the back of the pelvis with your core controls, right? That's going to occur when you sit in general. And when you're sitting on this low surface versus a chair, right, you have to coordinate your hip joints and your knee joints to manifest that lift in the middle. So if this doesn't work for you, you can also sit with your feet underneath you and a cushion above the calf. So some prefer that. Let's bring our hands up and balance the palms together in unity in front of our heart space. If it feels a contribution to your heart to bring your hands closer or a little distant, feel the differences. And let's join with our head maybe bowing down to the heart center and surrendering there. Breathing in that collective consciousness, breathing in wellness, safety, and support. Inhale together. Exhale, bowing into the space behind your heart. I wish you wellness and good health. Thank you. All right.